Welcome to A Kind Life. Today I'm very grateful to have Pam Ahern here. How are you going, Pam?
I'm good, and it's a delight to be with you, Alicia. Thank you so much for having me.
No, my absolute pleasure. It's been a long time coming and I'm so grateful. So thank you so much. So I would love to start with, tell us a little bit about, I suppose, the earlier years of your life, Pam, like, growing up, what your interests were. So tell us about that.
I have always loved animals. They've held a huge place in my life, as well as my bed as a small child. We had two cats, Blackie and Tiny, and I think I owe to them much of my basic learning about animal behaviour. Tiny was a little grey kitten, and she was absolutely a delight, would do anything for me. I would dress her up in doll's clothes and push her around the yard in a pram, and she'd sleep in bed with me at night. Blackie was the villain of the cat world, and he would scratch me. And I remember my mum telling me to watch that. He'll scratch you if he doesn't like you. And I didn't even realize that in those formative years, I was actually learning to read animal behavior. They were sending us messages all the time, and we had a goofy lovable Labrador named Laddie, and I would spend hours in the backyard with Laddie. I was always fascinated by the natural world, and I would watch bees, and we'd go around, Laddie and I together. And he was a gorgeous Labrador, except he would occasionally mistake me for a tree and pee on me, but I was a kid, and he just got up and ran on, and I had this wonderful relationship with animals. And I've always been a bit of an introvert, and there's a few things in life that I think have contributed to that. But the one stable thing has always been animals, and I think it's what I love so much about them is their authenticity, and I think that's something that we humans could well emulate. And in that small backyard and in that little tiny suburban house in suburban Melbourne, I learned about this animal called a horse. And I remember the first time I saw a picture of a horse, I thought, wow, I would love to have a horse of my very own. I could climb on his back, and he could take me places only a young girl could ever dream of. But we were city folk, and my parents weren't particularly well off. So my pleadings for a pony fell on deaf ears. And my mum always says that the worst thing you can say to Pam is you can't. And it wasn't because I was a belligerent child. You know, some kids, when they say, no, don't do it, the kid just does it just to prove a point and drive their parents mad. I wasn't that kind of kid. I loved a challenge, that the challenge when you say to yourself, well, what if? And that's still something that, guides me today. And that young child I was when I was told I couldn't have a pony, I had a scooter. My mother wouldn't even allow us to have a bicycle because they were way too dangerous. So I got the wheels off my scooter. I borrowed a pair of my mum's pantyhose, and I tied a tie to each end of those little wheels. And that was my saddle. I used to ride the kitchen stool around the house for hours. Clonk, clonk, clonk. My mum got sick of not having any pantyhose and all the noise I made. So then she took me down to the local pony club. And that's where my relationship with larger animals really began. And I really did, again, become a student of animal behavior from this little kid who knew nothing about horses and on these ponies that really didn't want a little kid on their back. And I got my dream of a pony, and beyond anything I could ever imagine, I went on to become a very, very successful equestrian, going around Australia to all sorts of agricultural fairs interstate, and you'd stay on site at those places. And again, the introvert that I was would always stick to myself. And, when the competitions were over, I'd be going in the cow pavilion and the sheep pavilion, the pig pavilion, and looking at animals and learning about animals. And also really learning so much about myself, because this little kid who had nothing and didn't have horsey parents and didn't wear the right jodhpurs and could never afford an expensive horse actually learnt about animals, but also learnt what I was capable of. And that was actually being my best. And I often refer to my equestrian days at the sanctuary and use lots of parallels, even though my life has certainly moved on from there, because I really did learn something. One of the most important lessons that I learned from competing is that I never actually wanted to be their best, because when I was coming up through the ranks, there was no chance in heaven or hell I was going to be the best, because I didn't have the right costume, I didn't have the right horse, didn't have the right money, didn't have the right actions, but to be my best. And that was all I was set out to do, is to, well, in the parameters of what I've got, how can I be better? How can I be a better rider? How can I be a better animal advocate? How can I be a better person? And that's so what got me where I did. And I actually did instantly become actually quite successful, as I said, and winning all sorts of lovely accolades and incredible achievements that kids dream about and would give a right arm or leg to achieve. But for me, my most crowning achievements were those relationships that I had with those horses. Most of my horses were wayward thoroughbreds that no one wanted or could manage, and were cast off from the racing industry. And really, I think the unity that I learned with those animals and the bonds that they trusted me. I remember one of my early instructors saying to me, I had this really, really challenging this black horse. And I called him the Black Wonder because I wondered why I took him on. And he had been, beaten and was terrified. And, you'd sneeze and he'd be off. And I was riding him one day and he didn't want to go somewhere. And the instructor said, "No, just flog him, just beat him, just flog him. You've got to make him more scared of you than he is of what he doesn't want to go to. So he'll go there." And I just, oh my gosh, no. I wanted him to go there because he trusted me. And I remember I was often ridiculed in my equestrian because I would never use a whip. I didn't want to use a whip to beat the horse into submission. And I think even in those early days, I think the Pam Ahern you see today was buried in there. I remember always thinking that I would ride horses. This is what I would do for the rest of my life. This is my dream. And those at the end of the career when I could see it coming to us, I remember I was really struggling with it and this incredible turmoil I was going through, because I thought, well, I'm actually going to walk away from this, and this was my life. This was all I knew. But I realized there was another calling, something was tugging at me in a direction to go somewhere else. And we all know what that something wasn't a something, it was a someone, and that was Edgar Alan Pig, telling me it was time to get down off my high horse and to really champion the cause of animals. And that's this trajectory that's got me where I am. And I think it's encapsulated in this beautiful quote, and it says, "I may not have gone where I intended to go, but I think I've ended up where I needed to be." And it's what happens when you actually surrender to the incredible possibility that is life, to having the courage to do something. You don't know where it's going to end. And I don't know where this is going to end, what I'm doing with Edgar's mission. I hope it's in a good place. But it is actually surrendering. We can stay on safe path, or we can go that road less traveled and find the beauty and the sense of wonder and courage and conviction and strength and power and all the incredible things that we have within us. Just have the courage to go and have a damn go. Yeah. That was the short answer.
No, I love it. I do wonder, Pam, myself, I used to ride horses as well. And I do wonder, now that I guess we could say we have a different lifestyle and we may know more than we did potentially at the time, do you still cherish those days, or do you almost look back? Like for me personally, I do cherish the relationships, like you were saying, and the bond I had with my beautiful horse. But I also now just look at it and sort of almost in a little bit of shame, and I sort of think I didn't quite understand what I was doing with those animals when I was riding them, and when I did use a whip. And is there anything like that for you where you sort of question some of those things?
I think we can always look back at our life and think we could do it differently. But there's another quote that I love, and it is, move on. We can't change the past. We can only shape the future. And I think it's just that learning trajectory. And I learned so much then. And if I had my life again, yeah, I'd do it differently. But the fact is, I'm not going to have my life again. This is my life. And I could look back with shame and guilt and regret and all of those things. So I just think that they're negative emotions and they don't really get us anywhere. It's a bit like a rocking chair. It takes us time and it doesn't get us anywhere. And as far as condemning people that do those things today, well, hey, out there could sit the next Pam Ahern or even greater. And if we shame or belittle those people, we've just lost potential vegans and potential animal advocates, or even potential being their best. I really hope we can encourage people to think about what they're doing, and having relationships with animals and the animal kingdom, because there's this one school of thought in veganism, that we shouldn't have pets and we shouldn't do this and we shouldn't do that. I think you've got to do what's right in your heart, and to try and live your life according to Pam Ahern. Don't do that, because you're going to end up with a terrible dress sense, not getting enough sleep and eating way too much chocolate. You don't want to do that. So take the good bits and leave the bad bits alone, and find the best within you as an individual. And that takes a lot of courage to explore those things. That maybe actually looking at what you're doing and saying, maybe the time has come to move on. Maybe I can do this a bit differently. Hey, got this right, I'm nailing it. And it's really where you're at in your journey of life, because we're all in a different journey, but we're all the same goal. I think we're all finding our path home.
Yeah. Yep. And so tell us about your meeting with Edgar Allan Pig.
Edgar Allan Pig. Oh my gosh, I think about that day so much, and it just brings so much joy to my heart. I think it even comes through in my voice that we hatched this plan, this evil plan. We needed a pig for a photo shoot. I was working with Animals Australia, who had started this campaign called the Save Babe campaign, and we're trying to raise media awareness. Now, Animals Australia was nowhere near the big, huge, influential organisation they are today. They were still a dynamic and incredible organisation, and some of the finest human beings you'll ever work with in those early days. And we needed a pig for a photo shoot with James Cromwell, who wanted to help us gain media attention. And I approached one of the children's farms to use a pig to do the photo shoot. And they said, yeah, that's fine, but it'll cost you $150. I know, pigs. I didn't have $150. And I did have a bit of a problem with children's farms in that I don't think they're particularly honest with the children. They'll go to these places and they'll cuddle the cute baby animals. And then where are they when they grow up? Well, if you have a look at their menu, there's a hint. And I just don't think that's being honest with children. I think that's one of the things that we really do owe everyone is our honesty, our authenticity. And they were going to get my money. I lived in the country at the time, and I did have, property and acreage because I had the horses. And I've always thought it'd be really cool to have a pig. So I had struck up a friendship with someone who worked at a pig farm, and we procured Edgar Allan Pig. The deal was done at back of some pub up in Buckner West, and Edgar came home with me, and I cannot tell you how excited I was, and I cannot tell you how disgusted Edgar Allan Pig was. He hated me. He did not want a bar of me, and who would blame him? Like, he, as a young piglet, he was destined for the dinner table. Now, he didn't know that, but he knew most of his interactions with humans never came really tarnished with kindness. He fell in love with my little dog, E.T., and E.T. danced around the pet carrier all the way home, and I was so excited about getting this little pig. And it was just the most wonderful thing, see him transition from this frightened little animal to this incredibly curious, confident, wonderful being. And it's what I see over and over. These animals that have the ability to transform their lives. And the reason they do that is because of kindness. Like, these animals can turn their lives around because people are kind to them. And that just really, really got me here, reminded me that that's where animals should belong, not further south in our stomachs. And the mission sort of really grew out of that idea of, the pig for the photo shoot. Photo shoot went incredibly well, to my surprise. I only had Edgar less than 24 hours and managed to pull it off. And James was just blown away with my pig handling skills 101, which really weren't pig handling skills 101. Edgar just followed my little dog E.T. around everywhere, and I looked like I was a pig master, but I wasn't. And James wanted to do this action on the steps of Parliament House, where he was going to march up the steps of Parliament House in Melbourne with Edgar by his side and demand a better deal for pigs, and people are going to just be blown away by this gorgeous piglet. And we said, yes, this is a wonderful idea. The journalists thought it was wonderful. Everyone thought it was wonderful. And then I've gone away, oh my gosh, now I actually really have to teach this pig how to be comfortable walking on a lead amongst people, because I never wanted to put this animal in a situation where he'd be frightened. So off to the local park, Edgar, E.T. and I went, and we'd be walking around. I have Edgar Allan on one side, my little dog E.T. on the other. And people came from everywhere to marvel at Edgar and his unique brand of pigginess. And they would be coming up and they'd rub his tummy, go, 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 and he'd just flop on his side. I thought, oh my gosh, I've got the only epileptic pig in Australia. But that's what pigs do. They love their stomach. Their stomach's dropped, and you rub it and they get this stare. They just drop to their side, this incredible euphoria that you have created in another living being. And that's a wonderful feeling when you realize you've brought such delight to another animal just by your touch. And it was watching people's interactions with Edgar got me thinking that the best ambassadors, the very, very best stellar ambassadors for these animals were the animals themselves. Now, I could speak to people's minds, but Edgar spoke so eloquently to their hearts, reminding them that that's where they belong. And so the sanctuary just grew, like Edgar, really literally bigger and bigger and bigger, to become an advocacy organisation for the animals. We provide sanctuary for the animals. For me, it wasn't enough to save one pig. That was great for that one pig. That is noble, kind, and damn awesome for that one pig. But the other hundreds and thousands of pigs that are condemned every year to suffering and the most horrific deaths imaginable, what hope was I giving them? And so that's where the advocacy arm of what we do is to actually speak to these animals, speak to people, speak for the animals, so that they're not in these situations of needing to be rescued. And probably one of the few groups in Australia that's actually working towards obsolescence. You know, people talk about being bigger and having, I actually want to work towards a day actually we don't need sanctuaries. You know, animals can live here in peace, but they're not actually needed. You know, we're not getting calls every day of the week about animals that are actually escaping the food chain and need sanctuary, because they've got sanctuary. You know, the world is their sanctuary. And that would be a wonderful place. And that's where my hope lies.
And so how did you go from one pig, Pam, to I think now over 450? Is that the last count?
That's the last count. And that's really interesting, because when I started the sanctuary, you know, put the shingle up, you know, sanctuary, and I said to my dear friend, he's now parted away, is B. Carmody. He had a poultry place up in Murray Bateman in New South Wales. And I said, you know, B, I want to start a sanctuary. And how am I going to get the animals? And B said, don't worry. Once you put the shingle up, once the word gets out there, they will come. And they have come, and they have come, and they still keep coming. I think it's word of mouth. You know, people hear about us. I know in our local area that the councils are so grateful for an organisation like Edgar's Mission, where our pound is. It is just opposite the abattoir. And so where those animals once would have to have been walked across the road to the abattoir, they can find sanctuary. And that's just so uplifting for the humans who would have had to do those things to the animals, that these animals can have another outcome beyond slaughter. And I think that's just so wonderful that we actually can provide that option and this safe haven for these animals who have somehow miraculously escaped the system. And that's got to be a reason for hope.
Yeah. And I guess I've always wondered, you know, like how I'm thinking you must have a good relationship within, you know, your community and even with farmers, you know, because you can't be seen as a threat. You know, you want to have those, I suppose, like amicable or you know, a good I suppose reputable name within the community, so that people are comfortable to come to you with animals when they're in need.
It is something that we're very mindful of, and I guess it was from my journey about learning to create change. I mean, what do I want? What is achievable? And no one is going to change their way of thinking because someone belittles them or demeans them or is cruel to them. You know, to invite a dialogue, you've got to find some common ground, and the common ground are the animals and our relationships with them. I remember not so long ago I came across a sheep in a paddock who was cast, and at first I thought they were dead, and I climbed the fence and found they weren't. And it was a big animal. There was no one known I was getting out of the animal tucked under my arm like the Jolly Swagman. And so I contacted the farmer. I remember standing in the middle of the paddock, you know, having this dialogue with this farmer, and he had his mate there, and his mate was going to take the sheep to kill the sheep, you know, put the sheep out of his misery. And I'm arguing, and I think I got the Nobel Peace Prize for arguing that day to actually get him to surrender the animal to me, and he did. And I was, you know, appealing to the goodness of his heart, and I said, you know, you've got a good mate, buddy. And he goes, no, I haven't. I'm a cruel bastard. And I think there was actually a level of he had some personal shame because he was killing the animals. And here's this person who is actually, you know, incredibly vulnerable. She's a woman on her own in the middle of nowhere. There's two blokes there, and she's trying to get this half dead sheep. You know, well, what do you want that sheep? It's, you know, it's not going to make it. But I wanted to save the animal, and I guess you've got to admire someone who does that, and to think, well, what is it about this animal that's making this person so passionate about saving their life? And it does start to make people start to see the animals differently. And the other thing is, I truly believe that no one actually sets out, well, very few people set out to be deliberately cruel to animals. We as a society have to ask, how has this happened? You know, we are imposing some of the worst jobs on humanity by those who work in slaughterhouses. You know, what those people have to do on a daily basis to sentient beings is soul destroying to them. And then the coping mechanisms that they develop to do those most egregious, horrible things, how can they walk away from that not scathed? And they are. They've actually found out that people suffer this condition called the PITS, and literally is the PITS. It's perpetrated induced traumatic stress syndrome, and is akin to, and they found this when soldiers were coming back from war who were experiencing arm-to-arm combat and had to actually kill another living human being. And it really goes against who we are as a species, that we actually don't want to harm another living being. And these people were forced to do it. And they did these studies, and they found that, at times they'd actually be shooting over the heads of the enemy in an attempt to scare them away, so they didn't actually have to kill them, because they didn't want to kill. And then people have to live with the scars of that. And people in slaughterhouses, those animals are fighting for their life, and they smell fear, and they get upset, and they defecate, and they do things that annoy people. So then they have to demonize these animals. And and it justifies doing that. I think that's the only way that people can do these things, when we see these animals as less than. And if we go back through human history and the way they've perpetrated injustices against other humans, it has been seen as less than, whether it was the colour of the skin, or whether it was a religion someone followed, whether it was even the gender. And that saw those others as less than. Over 100 years ago, women didn't have the vote because of our gender. Like, really? Like, that would never get up today, but it did then, and it was popular thought. But thankfully, we have people like Emmeline Pankhurst, who actually said, "Hey guys, this is wrong. Like, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't pass the bum test." And people, she's got a point. And slowly people started to have the courage to actually follow this one incredibly courageous individual to say, this is wrong, not on our watch. And one of the wonderful things today when it comes to the treatment of animals, so many people are saying, not on my watch, this is not going to happen on my watch. And there are so many ways we can say that. The hardest way is to start a not-for-profit sanctuary for rescued farmed animals. The easiest way is to not eat them. And then there's all those things in the middle that you can do. And this is one of the great things about being alive today.
Yeah. And that's something I'd really love to, I guess, get your perspective on. I think you have, I personally would say, one of the most successful models of running a sanctuary, from not only the animal care, but also fundraising through to, like you were saying, the advocacy and the outreach type of arm. What have you learned over the years? And is there one kind of piece of advice that you would like to share with people about what you've been able to achieve?
Well, thank you for saying that. I don't know if that's true, but I really appreciate that. What I would credit our success is the power of kindness, of being kind, and try it and just see it. It's, I think, the most incredible, powerful thing that every single one of us has access to. You don't have to be rich or powerful or smart or not so smart or anything in between. Any one of us can be kind. And it's incredible how empowering that is. And the wonderful thing about it is it feels good. It feels good. Try it. When you go and get your groceries next time, or go to the store, or go and borrow a book from the library, thank the person, say, have a great day. And someone will look up and you go, wow. And just that connection, by just saying something positive to another human being, by being kind, it empowers them, but it empowers you as well. And I really hope that can be the legacy of Edgar's mission. Our mission is kindness, and I really want to walk the walk on that one.
Yeah. And I definitely think you guys are, because, we've previously heard from Tricky, and who works at Edgar's, and he's, his main message is around kindness, and that's what he's learnt since being at Edgar's. But also as well, one of my earlier guests actually went vegan after her and her husband came to Edgar's mission, and, they spent time with the animals, and they read, the sign on your wall there about, what's the kindest thing you can do today? Maybe it's who you leave off your plate. And they went home and they decided to go vegan. So yeah, there's definitely such a strong, powerful message that people have when they've been to Edgar's and experienced it firsthand.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. That's really lovely. And it is actually really getting people to think, and it's actually having the courage to put it out there. One of the things that I talk about to our team with our advocacy is that We never tell people what to do or what not to do. We have no authority to do it. We have no guarantee that if we do tell people, they will do it. But if there's some way we connect them with the goodness that we believe lies within the human heart, your change will be enormous, absolutely enormous. I'm trying to think of a word that says how big it will be. It will just be so enormous. And I see that happening through over the years. I tell the story of my epiphany years ago. I started out in cat and dog rescue because I loved cats and dogs, and we would rescue the local cats and dogs and have them de-sex and try and find homes for them. And I had sent off for something in the local paper about companies that don't test on animals for household products and cosmetics, because that's an easy way to be kind to animals. I've got toothpaste here and I've got toothpaste there. One's test on animals, one's not test on animals. And I can make an enormous statement about the world I wanted to live in by buying the one that wasn't test on animals. I thought, well, this is great. I want to find out what else I can do here. And the list would get updated all the time, and new products would come out, or companies would change hands and ethics would come into it. And one time when the little brochure came out, it had a thing in it for an anti-fur rally. And I thought, fur's pretty cool. We don't need to wear fur. We're not in caves anymore. We've got lots of other things to clothe ourselves with. So I'd like to go along to the anti-fur rally. And I rang the lady up who was organising the rally, and I said to her, I'd like to come along to the anti-fur rally, but I eat meat. Is okay if I come? And what she said next was my grounding lesson in engagement and advocacy. She said, of course you can come. She said, but I want you to think about what's on your plate. Will you do that for me? I said, yes, I will. So went off to the anti-fur rally wearing my woolen skirt and leather shoes and leather belt, and was into all the conversations that were buzzing around. And people kept talking about this book called Animal Liberation. And I was curious because I love books, all books behind me. And it had the word animal in it, so I was hooked, but it had the word liberation. And my dad had warned me about, the liberationists, the communists, the wackos, the hippies are going to run and ruin the world, And so, but animals, so I was hooked. So I got a copy of the book by Peter Singer, and I wasn't very far into the book where he was talking about a time in England when he was taken by some friends to the local chapter of the RSPCA. And they were talking about animals and how they could better the world for animals. And they were getting on great. And then it came time for afternoon tea, and ham sandwiches were served. And Peter Singer thought, well, that's odd. And I thought, oh my gosh, he's got a point. Here am I talking about animals and caring for them better, expecting people to take me seriously, and I was eating animals. So overnight, I had my epiphany. I became a vegan. And I proudly announced to my mum the next morning that I was a vegan and there'll be no more animal products in the house. And wasn't a very good vegan because I found out down the track that the word was actually vegan, and I'd been pronouncing it wrong all that time. That's how isolated I was. I read it in a book. I had no one to tell me how to pronounce it until someone did tell me, oh my gosh, who have I told I was a vegan? Lots of people. But the wonderful thing today, I can go to my local supermarket in Lancefield. Now, the population of this small little country town is 1,402 or something. Not very big. Local supermarket in Lancefield. I can get soy milk, rice milk, oat milk, macadamia milk, almond milk. I can get non-dairy ice creams. I can get vegetarian burgers that are actually vegan in Lancefield. When I went vegan all those years ago, the only non-dairy milk you get was this powdered stuff. It came in a box. You mix it up with water. It was absolutely disgusting. Oh, my God. Like, there's no way I was going back because I knew what dairy meant to cows. But I thought, how am I going to sell this to people when it's crap? It's horrible. But now we have we have restaurants that do wonderful vegan fare, and even mainstream restaurants will have vegan options on them as well, which is just so incredibly uplifting, inspiring, empowering, and people can try these foods. I mean, the supermarket now, there's so many options that, you used to have to go to these little health food shops up whoop whoop to try and get, vegan fare. It's so readily available now, and people can pronounce the word vegan. And one of the most exciting things there is, one of the reasons they can pronounce vegan is courtesy of the Meat and Livestock Corporation, who did those ads having a go vegan, but they're actually telling people about the word vegan. So God love them. There's a positive there. And it's just, finding the positivity in the world, hanging on to that. So many negative happens, but hang on to the positive.
Absolutely. How many years ago was that, Pam?
My hair wasn't grey. It had to be over 30 years ago. You know, it was
Yeah, wow.
last century. It was way last century. Yeah, it was a long time ago.
And
Yeah, it was a while ago.
what's pretty incredible is I can only imagine how busy you are at Edgar's, but you still, find the time to go out to other public events, do speeches and speak, and have this advocacy role. So, you're very strong in things like I've seen you speak a number of times at live export rallies and, numerous other events, even corporate events and things. So it's pretty incredible, that you not only do this extremely like dedicated work at the sanctuary, you're also out and about being a voice for animals.
I have an amazing team. I really have the most amazing team. And you met Richard, the people here have hearts of gold. And I remember very on when I started on my journey, and I was speaking to the incredible Lynn White, who has been a great friend of mine for many years. I actually knew Lynn White before she was famous. It was quite funny. She actually came to assist me in speaking at our council meeting. Glenys Ugis from Animals Australia was supposed to come along and speak, and she couldn't. And she sent this woman who just started at the organisation, Lynn White, along. I thought, oh my God, you've sent the tea lady along to help me, try and get the council to ban circuses with animals. And Lynn White came. She's a lovely lady. And so we walked on and thought, oh God, this is going to go belly up. And I sat down and to look around, and then she started to speak. I've looked up, and the more she spoke, I thought, oh my God, we are in the presence of one of the finest human minds in history. And I will have a chuckle every now with Lynn about the day we met. And I thought they sent the tea lady to do this job, and it was just amazing. And I have the greatest respect for Lynn. And I was saying to Lynn, when I was starting the organisation, I want to start it, and how do we get people on board? And she said to me, when you do good things, good people will gravitate towards you. And my gosh, they have. As I said, we have the most amazing stellar team. And I'll just share with you another little story, because there's always stories with Pam Ahern. When I did speak at the live export rally the other day, we got a call, and there was a little lamb that was on 3 Chain Road, which our sanctuary is just off 3 Chain Road, who was by the side of the road, and there was the dead mother, and there was a dog at the scene. And my gosh, so I just said to one of the girls who was working here that day, I said, come on, we've got to go and help save the lamb. So just stop what you jumped in the car, and we're heading down the road trying to find this little lamb, the dead mother. And it turned out that it was the dead kangaroo on the side of the road. The dog had done around. There's this poor little lammy there. And so we got the lamb and got him sorted, and I chuffed off to the rally. And the only reason I could do that was because Dear Leone was here at the sanctuary to look after that lamb. And that's just incredible that I was still able to keep the speaking engagement and know that the lamb would be well looked after. And that just is because we have the most amazing people here who believe in me, who believe in our mission, and who believe in making the world a kinder place, and marry them together. And we have the most amazing team. So I get seen out there all the time, but honestly, I couldn't do what I do without the amazing team that I have behind me. And what I'd like to think is actually they're rising on my shoulders, and they will go above and beyond anything I've been able to achieve.
And I really would like to just, I guess, learn a couple of things, because there's a few things you've already named that I didn't know. I guess we know you for Edgar's, but in there you've mentioned, you went for anti-fur rallies, you've been involved in circuses, I guess, because, we know that you went from equestrian to the sanctuary, but there was a little bit in there in between that that got you excited about, being passionate for animals. So is there any other things in there that you'd like to mention we might not know about you?
Yes, well, it's actually quite funny, because a friend of mine put a photo up on her, I don't know, I'm no good at technology. So it's on this Facebook thingy, but I think it's called a story thing. And it was a photo from years ago, and it was one of my early days in that trajectory. And it came from that, the not testing on animals that I learned about vivisection. And I just thought that was so incredibly cruel and unnecessary. And so that was my first passion, was actually working against anti-vivisection. And what triggered this photo that my friend shared the other day was there was a rally in Melbourne against Lufthansa. They were exporting primates for research, and we were trying to get them to stop shipping primates around the world for research. And we did this action in Melbourne, and we had this lovely chap, Alexander Schiffereger, who was the head of an organisation called Guardians. It was an early anti-vivisection group in Victoria. And Alexander was a Russian, and he had a really, really distinct Russian accent. It was really, really hard to hear him. And we clearly didn't think this out. And so we had the rally where we were going to do the rally, and we were going to go around to the steps of Lufthansa, and we were going to, demand that they stop shipping primates around the world. And we had the media release to be read out. And we're going around there, and Alex goes, well, I can't read it. Yes, you can. And my friend, Robin Kirby, who's an incredible friend to this day, and she works in the space of anti-vivisection still. And we didn't want to do it because, we were too scared. And we're telling Alex that you can do it. He's going, no one will understand me. And clearly his accent was so hard. We had trouble understanding him. We had to concede that, he wasn't going to be able to read them. So it came to me, she goes, I'm not doing it. I'm sure I don't want to do it. So I get up there to read the media release against, to stop seeing the primates. And they were sending macaque monkeys around. But again, I'm so self-taught in so many of the things I do. And it comes back to my mother saying, you worst thing you say to Pam, you can't. And just because I don't know how to pronounce something, I'll have a go. And so they weren't macaque monkeys, they were macaques. And I knew they weren't macaques because I'd never heard the name macaque before, but that's what it looked like, a macaque monkey. And I'm reading this press release out, and the crowd, they're cheering me on. Clearly they'd never heard macaques before, but they thought that was a good thing. And and then later on, sometimes it's macaque. So I've never got that wrong before. But it just shows that you make mistakes. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Have a go. Have the courage to have a go. And, the worst thing you do is you make a fool of yourself. In the scheme of things, when they're shipping macaque monkeys around the world to mutilate and torture them, you're worried about making a fool of yourself. Whereas if you get up there and have a go, it just may take off. And at Lufthansa, they stopped shipping macaques around the world for research. And that was amazing. Yeah. So, have a go. So that was a huge space that I worked in, the anti-vivisection space. It was very, very hard because one of the things that came up all the time is your animal or your dog. And we know it's not your animal or your dog, because how often does that happen? Like, what is the scenario? An animal or your dog? It just doesn't happen. But we weren't scientists. Like, I didn't have the scientific argument. Where's Doug Leith when you need him? I didn't have that knowledge. I could research, and my friend and I would do these research, and we'd go through protocols, and we'd dissect all this research that they were doing on dogs and why it was invalid. And it was so hard to get it picked up. It was really hard. And I started to think about it, and I thought, well, if why are we actually having to do a lot of this research on animals? And the reason we were having to do a lot of research on animals because of human illness. And a lot of the reasons people were getting ill was because of what they were eating. And I thought, hey, why don't we cut out the middleman and actually just get people eating better? Just, if people stopped eating animal products, maybe vegans, we're not immune from illness. I'll tell you, we're not immune from illness, but it's certainly a much healthier way to live, certainly for us, and certainly for the animals, and certainly for the planet. So I just thought maybe that's a better boat to row. And then if people actually stopped eating animals, well, you're not going to support vivisection. You're not going to go to rodeos. You're not going to go fishing. You're not going to go to circuses with live animals. So actually, this is casting the widest net. We could stop here with vivisection and rodeos, but hey, if we can get people here and pull them in and actually starting to really think about what we're doing, it's going to impact on so many choices. Whether they go to tourist attractions that are exploiting animals, that will be on their radar. And that's sort of why I've landed where I've landed. Everyone needs to find your niche in life, and it's not going to be the same as me, and not going to be the same as yourself. I mean, you're clearly very good at technology and doing these amazing podcasts. That's your niche. My friend Robin is working with the Humane Research Australia, and she's doing amazing work with there's amazing organisation, a great organisation. So there's niches for us all, and it's actually finding where your is. You might have to try on a few shoes before you find the right one to fit, but hey, keep trying. Try things and try what resonates with you, and play to your strengths.
Yeah. And I guess for anyone that may not have had, the privilege of being around animals, like, yourself, if they haven't been to a sanctuary, what's, I suppose, how would you describe to them, what's things that you wish they knew about animals?
Just to share space with them, just share space with these animals, and just observe. Be a gentle. Don't have to be a touchy feely. You get your what do they call those things people do, selfies. Just observe. Actually think about, it's not all about me, and watch these beings going about their world, and you'll be struck by the emotional worlds these animals have, by their choices and their clever and quirky ways. I've just shared a post on our Facebook story tonight. I wrote about these two ducks that we have. They actually came from my beautiful friend B. Carmody's property. When he passed away, we took a lot of the birds in from the sanctuary, and we didn't know who was who. We had this huge group of birds, and we thought, well, how are we going to work out, whose friend we put them? Well, they told us in the most clever and intriguing and uplifting of ways. We had these two birds that actually got separated in their pens. We didn't know, and they paced up and down. We called them boyfriend and girlfriend, and they paced up and down one another because they wanted to be together. And when we put them together, they just waddled off. Oh my gosh, we didn't realize they were friends. And these other two that I wrote the story about that I shared tonight, they're Starsky and Hutch, and they're these two big, beautiful ducks. They're a little bit on the aloof side, but that's okay because they all have their personalities. And poor old Hutch had a sore leg, and he had to go off to the vet. And Starsky stayed home. And when we brought his friend back, he was mooching around in the course. Hey, buddy, you brought your friend back. Oh, that'd be you. And he waddled on over there. They're having their chats, and then their celebratory dunk in the water. And clear joy in these animals. And then they waddled off into the sunset together. And then this music started playing. Okay, the music didn't start playing, it was playing in my head. And it was just incredible that these where did my friend go? Where did my friend go? And you think about that, and we don't, think about the choices we make and how they impact upon animals, and these friendships that they have, mothers and their babies, and just, there's the siblings that will stay together, or animals from different circumstances. They make friends at the sanctuary. We've got some lammies going off shortly to be rehomed, and the woman expressed interest in two of them, but there was a third, and we said we cannot possibly split them. She goes, oh no, I'll take the three of them. And this little group will be going off to their new home, and they're friends. And it is, part of me is very sad because I would love to keep them in my life forever, but honestly, this is the most wonderful of homes, and it means that we can take in more animals. And that's, I think, something that you do start to learn is the concept of selflessness, that it isn't all about us. We must look after ourselves. We must put our oxygen mask on first before we save someone else, but we still can save someone else. And these wonderful homes that are out there that the animals can have, and those people will share their stories of the animals, so that will still live on. And you mentioned about people going to sanctuaries. There are so many sanctuaries now across Australia. When I started, I knew that there was Bede had a poultry place up in Murrum Bateman, and there really wasn't many others, and then we started, and then so many other ones have started. So you don't have to go too far to find a sanctuary to take your family and friends to, go and help out, volunteer if you can. Check them out. They are all so many wonderful sanctuaries out there.
Yeah. And I think it's something, I'm sure most people that listen to this will be familiar with your social media posts, but I really, definitely love to highlight you are an incredible storyteller. And is that something, that is always been in your life, or just since you've been at Edgar's and want to share animal stories?
It's really funny. It sort of happened serendipitously, really. Again, from the very early days with the sanctuary. It's quite funny, actually. Robin was one of the foundation members of Edgar's mission, and one of the stations came out to do a story. It was a Paramount Pictures. They did a follow-up. It was Paramount Pictures. They did a follow-up from The Pigs Are in Charlotte's Web, and it was called Where Are They Now? And they did this thing about where are they now, and all the pigs and everything. And one of the TV stations wanted to do a follow-up about some of the Charlotte's Web pigs, and they came out to the sanctuary to see where some of the Charlotte's Web pigs were living with us. And it was going to be going there in 6 months' time or something, that sits in the can and whatever. Now, I didn't even have a website then. And Rob and I talked about getting, doing a website and all those sort of things that you do when you have a not-for-profit sanctuary for rescued farmed animals. And I knew nothing about it. And then they called one day and said, look, actually, we've had rescheduling plan. It's actually just going to go on at the end of the week. Oh, great. Oh, oops. We suddenly had to get this website together. So Robin, God love her, went down to Officeworks and got some program, and we madly put this website together. Oh, hey, we've got to put stories of the animals together. So I started writing some stories about the animals, and it just grew from that. And then I would get people's email addresses and would do little email newsletters to send out to people. It's quite funny in the early days, again, clearly not very tech savvy myself was. And I think you had this thing called dial up or something, and people would dial up. And if you sent photos, it blocked your server. I was a champion of blocking people's server. I had people dropping off my email list left, right, and centre because I would send the photos in this large file format, and they would take forever to download, and people couldn't access their whatever it was. So clearly had to learn the hell of a hurry. And now I think we have the most amazing website, and we're actually just going through a transition. We're actually redoing our website again. But Kyle does all that because he's really good at that. And that's a wonder that these people come along with these other skills. And it's quite funny because I remember, and I'd love to catch up with this Irish teacher we had in secondary school. I think I was in Form 2. And my forte was always maths. So I love maths and science because they were logic. And I love logic. I guess that's why I'm a vegan, because it just makes sense. And English, it was like, oh, you had to think about that a little bit more, and you had to put a bit more heart and soul. It was touchy-feely, and, could be anywhere. It was hard to measure the metrics of those sorts of things, where maths and sciences, that was really, logic, loved it. And we had to write some piece of writing one night, and we get marked on it, and I wrote some piece of writing, whatever, and submitted it the next day. And then this dear Irish English teacher was telling us about the assignments, and she was really angry because everyone had done a really bad job. But she said there was one piece of writing, and she said it was the most brilliant, most authentic thing that I've ever read. It's the most incredible writer. She said, but I was just so annoyed. I couldn't give it, it was a mark out of 5. I couldn't give it a 5 because they just didn't stay long enough to fix their grammar and their spelling, and so I had to mark it down. And I thought, well, that wouldn't be, because it wouldn't be a good piece of writing. It was mine. And when she was handing them out, she goes, "That's yours." And she said, why didn't you spend a bit extra time to fix your grammar and fix your spelling? She said, because I wanted to go ride my horse. And there was always my animals. I wanted to do my animals. You couldn't get out there quick enough to do my animals. And even to this day, I still have someone proofread my stories and fix my grammar, because it comes from the heart. And I don't believe I am a good writer. The stories come from the animals. I'll be with the animal, like the story I just mentioned there about the ducks I've shared tonight. It came from the animals. I'm watching this happen, and I'm telling their stories. I'm not writing from me, make it up. I'm telling the stories of the animals. And Laurie Levy was very, very influential in my advocacy in my early days. And he said, you must cause people to feel. If you don't cause people to feel, you're never going to move them. So I have all these people riding on my shoulders when I write or when I do things, all these people that I've mentioned who have had a huge influence on my life. And I do take sage advice, and even from people who you disagree with, or who don't live life according to what you think. I think you can learn from that. If you see someone behaving badly, you think, well, I don't ever want to behave like that, because look at how they look, and look what they're doing to other people. So you can always learn from the bad people as well. You don't want to be like them. I think we've all got something to learn. But I think our greatest teachers in life aren't those who stand before us in the classroom, or those incredible authors whose books, are all around me. The greatest teachers in our life are the animals. We have so much we can learn if only we will be the humble student and listen to them.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, I think that's probably a great place for this to end, Pam, unless there's something that you think we might have missed, or if you want to mention, I'm pretty sure all my listeners would know how they can support you and your work at Edgar's Mission. But if there's anything, coming up that you want to mention, or anything you think we might have missed, please go right ahead.
I know I've got to go and check some sheep shortly. So I think you've done an amazing job. As always, I do like to sign off with our motto. I think it just encapsulates the spirit, not just of Edgar's mission, but the spirit of the growth of our humanity. And as always, mission fashion is not a statement, it is a question, because we really want to encourage people to think. And that is, if we could live happy and healthy lives without harming others, why wouldn't we?
Absolutely. And I will say, Pam, I think normally at the end of every episode, I do ask people for a favorite quote. And I would have to say yours has been mentioned a number of times. So yeah, it's definitely well known and something that, we all use to encourage other people to think. So thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. And I know you said before that you think you have all these people riding on your shoulders that you've taken great advice from and learnt from, but you are definitely one of those people for lots of us in the movement, and also I'm sure exterior to us that are, you're in their mind front and center thinking about the animals. So thank you so much. We're so lucky to have you, and I know the animals are very grateful as well.
Liz, thank you so much. Namaste. Take care.
Thanks, Pam.
Bye now. Thank you.